Hey, what's up, guys? Simon Edwards at Pumacom here with Heat Seeker Sports, and you're watching our Underdog Playoff Best Ball show. We are now in the second round. We're in the divisional round of the playoffs, but Best Ball continues. And this is a more interesting round in that when we pick our teams, we're focused more on some of the scrubbier players on these teams. We're not really necessarily going to have all that big value that we had in round one. So we're looking more towards securing our stacks and stuff like that, making sure that we get a complete team to the Super Bowl. And joining me today is my friend Spread Astaire. Spread's joined me on a few of these shows already for the wild card round. And Spread, what's going on, man?
What is up, Simon? So this has been a fun week of shows for me. You know, when a celebrity messes up, what do we see? We see like the apology tour, right? Where they go on Good Morning America and Oprah and they all, they apologize. And I feel like I'm on my apology tour this week as I spent all last week and the preseason touting this high-powered offense and ferocious defense of the Dallas Cowboys. And every show I've been on this week, I've had to face the music. So I'm here. I'm ready to face the music. But the great thing about what we do, Simon, right? There's always a chance to bounce back. So I drafted two teams with you last time. One of them advanced. I think I could have maybe advanced if I didn't mess up an auto draft. So we learned, we not learned the lesson, but we're reminded the lesson. Always use the queue. And I'm ready to begin my apology/redemption tour today.
Hey, I'm going to jump on that apology tour with you too, because I was really heavy on the Rams, and the Rams ended up biting me in the ass. They lost by one freaking point, and it was very close towards the end. A few bad officiating calls and shit like that, but you can't really blame that. They ended up losing, and we move on to the next game, man. And now, Spread, you have an opportunity to take another look at those Green Bay Packers. They have a very difficult matchup against the San Francisco 49ers. So before we get into that game, make sure to hit like on the video. Looking for 15 likes, and I'll be putting out some more content over the weekend. And make sure to hit the subscribe on the YouTube page, because I'm at about 430 right now, looking to hit 500 before the end of the season. On a great pace to do that right now. And you guys have been a huge help. I appreciate all the viewers who've tuned in throughout the season, who've watched a lot of these game script shows that I do for DraftKings Showdown throughout the season. Spread's joined me on a whole bunch of those. So if you like the analysis, hit the subscribe on the YouTube channel. Let's keep this audience growing. And we'll head into, kind of taking a look at this playoff generator that I've been promoting these last few weeks. This is a generator that you can find on Pro Football Network, but it's been a really, a cool generator. After that ESPN one started crapping out on me, I started turning to this one, and it works pretty flawlessly. It's very, very simple way to go about trying to map out your path to the Super Bowl. And we're looking right now at Houston versus Baltimore. Baltimore got that bye in the first round, and now they face number 4 Houston, looking at a 43.5 point total from what I see, and Houston are 9.5 point dogs. Spread, what are we thinking on this game?
This is a tough one, Simon. My original idea here is, we've liked Baltimore so much. The one that I did advance, fortunately, is a Baltimore stack. I still got Lamar and some of these receivers, so I'm still alive. So I'm high on Baltimore. But boy, what can we say about the Houston Texans? And that was one that I got right. It's so funny how one game can ruin your whole weekend. It's because it's the game you thump your chest on and put the most money on. But I had Saturday right. As I changed my mind during the week, if you would have seen me on shows on Monday, I said I like the Browns. And the more I looked into it, the more I felt the Texans were the right side. Now, what really surprised me about the game was not that they won or not that they covered the +2.5, but the fashion in which they won. They have to be feeling good going into Baltimore. And another thing on their side is, from a mental perspective, they're completely free rolling now. They have no expectations going into the season. Simply by winning the division, they've proved they're on the right track. If they would have lost last week's game, it's not like Dallas. There's no consternation in the streets. They're heading in the right direction. So they come in here loose, free rolling, playing a Baltimore team that, let's be fair, has a bit of pressure. And this is what happens, and we see it in the NBA as well, where players' elite regular season performances can be discarded due to the lack of playoff success. And that's where Lamar Jackson is at in his career right now. So Lamar has an opportunity to have a big week, dispel some notions, and this seems like it's a great team to do it against. However, as we've seen against these playoffs so far, we don't want to bet against these young teams that come in on an offensive role. Because what was Cleveland's defense? And I had mentioned, right, hey, their defense isn't as good on the road, but regardless, to put up that performance against that defense, this Houston team seems like they're going to be ready for everything. So the way I'm projecting this game right now, I do have Baltimore advancing, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's close. I wouldn't be surprised if the Texans players put up points. So while I think we should have Baltimore advance, I don't think that Texans players are out of the realm of possibility here to put up some big points, because I believe this could be a shootout, a really close game, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Texans covered the spread.
Yeah, I mean, I see that too, especially with a 9.5 point spread. I don't think that's really warranted considering what we've seen out of this offense recently. And, I was kicking myself last week because, I bet on the Texans early in the season to win the division. They ended up pulling it out, and I should have run it back with drafting them in best ball like I did with Cincinnati a couple years ago. But for whatever reason, I was heavy on the Browns too. I was right there with you, Spread. I was on the Browns, and it just didn't pay off for us. But I mean, anything could have happened in that game. They did have that home field advantage, which was nice. But yeah, the Texans, I like them in this game versus Baltimore as well. I'm not going to fade Baltimore by any means, but I'm not going to shy away from stacking the Texans when the opportunities present itself. And typically right now, the way that these new drafts go, the four main quarterbacks are going to be Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Brock Purdy, and who's the Lamar Jackson, right? Those guys are going in round one, basically. So if you get that number one overall pick, you're basically drafting Christian McCaffrey for the most part, unless you take one of those quarterbacks. When it comes back to you, you're left with two options. You're left with either CJ Stroud or Jared Goff. And it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to take Jared Goff in that spot since you've already drafted Christian McCaffrey and you have your NFC representation there. So it makes a lot of sense there to start stacking the Texans when you're the first overall pick. I think a lot of people are going to go in that direction, but that's going to be one of the interesting things about the strategy here. We're not necessarily looking to fade teams outright if the opportunity presents itself to get a complete team stack and maybe even a cheap team stack, which we'll see when we actually get into this drafting. So I do like the Texans' chances of potentially pulling off an upset in this game, and I'm not shying away from stacking that team by any means.
All right. I'm glad to see some more support here for these up-and-coming Houston Texans.
Yeah. I think for the sake of this, let's put it on the. Do you want to put the Texans or the Ravens through Spread?
I think the Ravens will advance, don't you?
Yeah.
I mean, it really depends. I mean, we can go with what we think is going to happen, or just the way to differentiate from the field if you think a Texans upset. But boy, the Ravens have been juggernauts this year. It's just hard to see. I just think the game might be closer than 9.5. I thought the line was going to be around 6.
Yeah, I think the spread is too wide there. I mean, I would bet on it. I would recommend people betting on that. And I will say this too about Lamar Jackson. I mean, you can look at the Texans as the underdogs. coming into this game with nothing to lose and everything. One thing I'll say about Lamar Jackson is, like the whole league in the beginning of the season, if you remember, basically rejected him, or not necessarily rejected him, but there was a lot of quarterback needy teams that didn't even interview the guy when the Baltimore Ravens had allowed him to go out for interviews when he was a free agent. Teams like Atlanta, teams like that, that didn't even take the interview. He was going to be expensive, granted, but teams have given up a lot more for a lot less in the past. And Lamar Jackson was like about the best quarterback that you could draft in a draft. You're giving up a number one pick, or you're giving up your top pick for Lamar Jackson, maybe a couple top picks for him. But for me, it would have been worth it. But it didn't work out that way. Lamar ended up going back to the Ravens, and he ended up proving it this year. And he had an MVP caliber season. So happy to see that for Jackson. And I'd be happy to see it for him in the playoffs, continuing on to a Super Bowl. Even though I usually like taking the dogs in situations like that, but I'm rooting for Jackson in this one.
Yeah, and we'll see how it turns out. Obviously, how can we keep that win that the Baltimore Ravens had on Christmas night out of our minds? Another one, not the fact that they won, the fashion in which they won. And maybe I'm letting that game and that performance dictate my thinking too much. But to be fair, if we run some numbers, this Baltimore Ravens team is going to be pretty impressive. So I'm fine having them advance here in our bracket, and we'll be a little chalky, I guess.
Yeah.
The next one, I think, is where you make your hay if we stay in the AFC.
Yeah.
Talk about a coin flip, Simon.
Yeah.
Which way are you leaning?
I'm leaning towards the Buffalo side on this, and I'm leaning on Buffalo because of like the heavy investment I took on them. Like if you remember my shows, basically leading up before Buffalo clinched, I had a promo running at the top of all my shows where I was saying get in on Best Ball now and start drafting the Bills because they are cheap and you can stack them. And I like the Bills in that feels like the year when everybody has written them off or had written them off, that they would make a run and take like a step forward that they haven't been able to do in the past. And so I really liked the Bills heading into the playoffs, and I continue to like them. I think that this is the year that maybe Josh Allen gets over on Patrick Mahomes. What do you think their spread?
Yeah, I think it's truly a 50-50 game. From a betting perspective, I have not made a move on this game at all. And I'll make arguments for both teams. I think that's something that's important to do at handicap. A friend who always says, if you haven't figured out how your bet can lose, you didn't handicap the game thoroughly, right? If and I probably did that wrong with Dallas. If the Kansas City Chiefs win, we know Patrick Mahomes has it. No, we never at all this year doubted his skill. We never said he's the reason he's missing throws. No, he wasn't missing any throws. He's putting those throws where these guys could catch it. And a lot of those balls were being dropped. So all it takes is for professional wide receivers, right? Some of the group of the most elite 100 receivers in the planet, right there in the top 100 in the planet, to simply catch the football. And when they did that in freezing cold conditions with everything on the line against the Miami Dolphins, it showed you what an easy win this can be. The Buffalo Bills were a juggernaut through the first 6 weeks. Then their defense got decimated. Now that their defense is back to full health, I'd say that both these teams have an equal defense. So it's going to come down to not just quarterback versus quarterback, but I do think it's offense versus offense, because we've seen in these big games, the best offenses beat the best defenses. This isn't 1989 anymore. Defense doesn't win championships. Defense is helpful. But look, it's always been elite quarterbacks you call Joe Flacco elite, right? But, that have won the Super Bowl. It's the top guys. So we have two top guys waging it out here. If the Bills win, I would say it's because the Chiefs aren't making plays. I think Mahomes is going to put those guys in. If the Chiefs win, I will say it's because they are making plays. And it's tough to see, Simon, because as bad as they've been all year, they're bad comparative expectations. They've still had good offensive performances. So I really think this is a tough game. But if you want to lean towards the Bills, I'm fine going there because I don't have a strong conviction, and I'm not necessarily ready to plant my flag here on the Chiefs. You know, it's another fun thing about this, Simon, is that this will be Patrick Mahomes' first road playoff game. Yeah, let's see how that goes, right? Because I think it was a lot easier with everybody going crazy and, you know, the friendly confines. So let's see how he does on the road. Another small notch there to the Buffalo Bills side.
Yeah, and if you remember a couple years ago, the last time these teams faced each other in the playoffs, that was the coin flip game. So that was the game where Buffalo looked like they had it, man, and then they somehow blew it in the last minute of regulation, sent the game into overtime. Kansas City won the coin toss, and they changed the rules after that, right? Spread. That was the one
that's the game that changed the rules.
Yeah. Yes. So that changed the overtime rules because of that game. And Buffalo has a chance to avenge that playing at home. You know, the crowd's going to be rowdy for it. And you already got the Bills Mafia, which is already like kind of a rowdy crowd. And now you got this going on top of it, like a revenge game, like an ultimate revenge game. You know, I just like Buffalo's chances. And I've liked Buffalo's chances of making it to the Super Bowl since these started doing these shows for playoff best ball, and I'm going to stick with that angle.
All right. What are you thinking in the NFC?
So the NFC, the first game we're looking at is Green Bay versus San Francisco. That one has a 50.5 point total with another 9.5 point spread in favor of San Francisco. And we've seen how Green Bay has played recently. They are one of the hot teams in the NFL right now. Jordan Love going above and beyond and just coming through in the clutch for his team, showing himself to be like a worthy, successor of the Favre and Aaron Rodgers, at least in this first year. Spread was calling it in the beginning of the season when he was drafting the Green Bay Packers in Best Ball, and he was right, and they ended up having a great year. And what I like about Jordan Love is he elevates the guys around him. He came in with a bunch of newbie receivers, a bunch of rookie receivers, and second-year Christian Watson, and all those guys have elevated. And that says a lot about the ability of Jordan Love to get guys that wouldn't have thought would be having decent years. Like every wide receiver on that team is contributing, and that I think that says a lot about the quarterback. But what do you think about this game in general, Spread?
This is a tough one. Obviously, I was so wrong on Green Bay last week, and I thought as a 7th seed that they didn't necessarily deserve to be in the playoffs. So with egg on my face, I stand here and I say that, I definitely underestimated this team as far as their playoff potential. However, I would say that San Francisco is a notch above Dallas. The lines makers say they're 2.5 points better. I mean, from what we've seen, that seems wrong to me. It seems like they're 4 or 5 points better. Yet, Green Bay outperformed the spread. Let's see if they're -7. And what did they win? 48-21 or so they outperformed the spread by 25 points there last week. So obviously we have been underestimating these Packers. One interesting thing here will be that the Cowboys ran primarily man coverage, and Jordan Love has much better statistics against man coverage. The 49ers prefer to run a zone. His completion percentage dropped from 69 to 62% going against the zone. So maybe a little bit of downgrade here. I like the 49ers, but of course I'm a little wary of counting out the Packers once again.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I think Green Bay is kind of a situation where if you draft either the Bills or the the Bills or the Chiefs, right? And if we think that that game might be a closer, lower scoring game, the score on that one that they are projecting for the Chiefs game, I didn't say that at the top, was 45.5 points with the Chiefs as 2.5-point dogs. So, if you think that that game's going to be low scoring, or one of these other games are going to be low scoring, then that's where you want to target the Green Bay Packers, because I think that they are going to help you out with your upside if you want to make sure that your team advances to the next round. Because obviously, if you stack something like the Chiefs, it could be Patrick Mahomes and Isaiah Pacheco are the only guys that put up real points. And you're going to want to kind of try to figure out a way to supplement that, not only with your NFC run back, but also you might want to get yourself another quarterback, because Patrick Mahomes, he's had a lot of down weeks this year. And I would not be surprised to see Patrick Mahomes score like 16, 17 draft or fantasy points in this game. And that is where, like a guy like Jordan Love, you might want to draft him later on, because he could put up 20 points against San Francisco. What's San Francisco's biggest weakness is to wideouts. They are giving up, as far as DraftKings points, they are giving up, let's see here, they're giving up 23.8 DraftKings points a game to wideouts. And that's a pretty significant number. That is the best matchup for wideouts on the entire slate. And that sets up those Green Bay wideouts, which I was just talking about, that Jordan Love has been able to elevate. That sets them up to be able to put up a decent amount of points in this game as far as DraftKings points. So, I wouldn't write off the passing game of the Packers, although they're not necessarily like the best bet to win the game. Like, as far as what we need them for to help our teams advance to the next round, it might be smart to get exposure to that passing game.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens. One of the things that the Packers found success with is the Cowboys' inability to stop the run, as Aaron Jones was the fantasy performer of the weekend. I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball like that against San Francisco. But let me qualify that and say, I knew that they were going to try and run the ball against Dallas, and I didn't think they'd run the ball against Dallas too. So I think this wild card round always gets fun, or the division round, because what we have is we have our established juggernaut, our team that, if we're running predictive statistical models, right, our team that's going to be at the top going against a team that's hot, a team that's playing well, a team that's exceeding expectations. So how far will they exceed expectations is something that you need to ask yourself. And so, see, we're going all chalky here with our predictions. So for those watching, if you disagree, right, if you're like, Spread's wrong, like he's counting out the Packers again, in these contests, it's good to take a stand. Because my guess is if we fill out the Lions here as well, like we'll fill this out. But Simon, I think that when it comes to drafting, I'm going to be fine taking a stand here. Because you're going to want to try and get different. Now, obviously, KC and Buffalo should be close to evenly distributed, but I would say on the other teams, everyone's going to be targeting the rest of the home teams. So, if you disagree with something you say, or you think that we're counting out, your team or a team that you've been backing all year, take that stand, load up on Packers, and to go ahead, and we'll go right to the next game. I don't think the Buccaneers are going to do that well. When we do a show on Monday, we talk about, we watch the game, and then we say, how do we adjust our power rankings? And if we talk about the Buccaneers-Eagles game, I would say I'm downgrading the Eagles. I'm not upgrading the Buccaneers off that performance, right? When you watch that Green Bay Packers game, you go, I'd be a fool not to upgrade this team in my power rankings. Obviously, they're better than I expect, because they beat a Dallas team, and say what you want, maybe a little bit of lackadaisical effort, but that was nothing like the quit that the Philadelphia Eagles showed. You've talked about it before with the coach. I defended him through about week 8 or it would have been week 12. I could have defended him till, right? They were 10-1. I could have still defended him, Simon, but you got the last laugh there, and it felt like that team quit on the field and wanted him gone. Now he's not gone. From what I've seen, he's coming back. And McCarthy's coming back too. How crazy is that, Simon?
Yeah.
But my point is, I didn't necessarily upgrade the Buccaneers over that win. I just thought that was a Philly team that was a shell of itself and just was old Yeller wandering out behind the barn, right, waiting for the shotgun, because I'm not ready to upgrade that performance. But we've got the 4 favorites advancing so far in our thing, and that's just why I wanted to make a point. Even though we do, and of course we expect these guys to advance. Vegas is sharp for a reason, right? Last time I went, a lot of nice stuff going on there. Those casinos, brand new seats, brand new everything. So I just wanted to point that out. But boy, do you like the Buccaneers at all? Do you think I guess they have a chance to score points this week. I just have trouble seeing them advancing. I could see them losing a shootout.
So we're looking at a 48.5 point total in that game, with Tampa Bay 6.5 point dogs. And I'll tell you my case for Tampa Bay in that one is I'm looking for a game where I think that one of these dogs can pull it off. And that is the game that I lean towards the most. And the reason why I'm leaning towards that game the most is Dan Campbell still has the same faults. He's a great coach, but he's an aggressive coach. And, sometimes that can bite you in the ass. I think that in a game like this, where the Bucs are being, I won't say underrated, but, like everybody's on the Lions, and for good reason. They're playing at home. It felt like last week was like a Super Bowl for the Lions, right? They had the ultimate revenge game. They had Jared Goff having to come out there and prove that Sean McVay made a mistake. They had the first ever playoff game held in Detroit since the 90s. There was a lot of emotion tied to that spot. And it was a hard-fought game, and they came out and they won it. And what does, the defense come out doing, like leading into this week? They start to undermine Baker Mayfield, who is a gritty player who takes shit personally. And, Baker Mayfield, he has been outperforming this year. We're starting to see the Baker Mayfield that we expected to see, the first year when he played with Cleveland and won that first playoff game for Cleveland. After that year, everybody was high on Baker Mayfield. We were expecting to see big things out of him, but then he just kind of collapsed and disappeared. And he's kind of had a resurgence this year. Last week, we saw them win, and they were winning with ease, which is expected with the way that Philadelphia was like so bad. But I don't think that the emotional expenditure to win that game was anywhere near the intensity that Detroit just had. So I think that Tampa Bay is coming in more they're unsatisfied. They're coming in to win a huge game. The CJ Gardner-Johnson basically made some kind of a comment about Baker Mayfield, saying the team would be great if they had a quarterback type of comment, right? And, they asked Baker Mayfield about that in a press conference, and you could tell that he was slighted by it and that he takes it personal. And he basically said, well, they weren't watching the tape because they were talking about Russell Gage, who's been on the IR the entire season or something around those lines. But, Baker is, that the team's going to come in with a chip on their shoulder, which is always dangerous. Let's not forget that Detroit before this year had not won a playoff game since the 90s, and just 2 years ago, we were writing off, or not necessarily writing off Detroit, but people were like, okay, what's going to happen with this Dan Campbell guy? Is Detroit going to be legit? They came out with the whole grit angle, and Dan Campbell has delivered. He's taken the team to the playoffs. They won their first playoff game, but I do think that Tampa Bay is going to be a dangerous team, a dangerous opponent in this game. And I'm not just picking on the Lions because I had the Rams last week against them. I do think that Tampa Bay has a shot in this game, and they are cheap in these playoff underdog drafts, which is why we want to make a case for Tampa Bay. And, if I'm making a case for Tampa Bay, it's because I think that Mayfield's coming in with a chip on his shoulder. The team is rallying behind Mayfield. The guy got shit on for years, leading back from that Odell Beckham stuff, and everybody had written him off. He comes in, he makes the team happy. Like the players like him. He gets along with his teammates and everything like that. I think the team rallies around him a little bit this week, and potentially can upset the Lions here.
All right. Well, it's good to hear. And I think that we're going to have to take some of those attitudes into this draft that we're about to do right now, because simply picking the chalk, even if those teams win, it's going to be really hard to win, right, Simon? Because you're going to need the right combination. So
exactly.
I would say go over these. We obviously like all the favorites. We made some cases for each dog. I would at least choose one that you like and target them, right?
Yeah.
Let's say my favorite dog this week is the Texans. My favorite dog is the Packers. My favorite dog is the Buccaneers. The Chiefs don't really count because I'd say that splits 50-50. So choose one of those bigger underdogs. And right, because we're on Underdog Fantasy. Take a stand there. And then the opposite conference, I would say take the chalk. So if I choose the Texans as my dog, I'm targeting 49ers. And the draft might choose how I turn this out. Because if I pick one, like you mentioned earlier, now my NFC team's going to be the 49ers because I want McCaffrey. If I'm picking two, probably going to end up with the Ravens because I don't know about you, Simon, but if I land on number 2, I'm taking Lamar. What do you think?
If I land on number 2, I'm taking Lamar too. I think you got to pick your team. You got to not hold necessarily biases against teams. Like maybe you want to fade the Chiefs, go ahead and fade them. If you want to hope that maybe Detroit makes it to the Super Bowl, maybe you fade the Chiefs, take a couple good guys in that 5 spot or whatever, and then hope that Jared Goff makes it to you in the 3rd round or something like that. That's a strategy you can go. There are ways that you can, fade one of those top teams if you don't like them. For me, I want to have a little bit of exposure to all of those teams, even though I'm not a fan of the Chiefs. But I am a realist, and I think that there could be scenarios where Buffalo does not win that game. But I have a heavy investment on them from round 1, and I have no Chiefs investment from round 1, basically. So I am going to have some exposure to the Chiefs and all these top 4 teams here, like in the multiple drafts that I end up doing.
All right, Simon, let's dive into a draft. But before I do, I should have done this last week. Who's your Super Bowl winner?
My Super Bowl winner, I'm gonna stick with the Bills. I'm gonna stick with the Bills. And I think it's Bills San Francisco. I'm gonna go with the Bills over San Francisco, even though I like both those teams, and that would be a tough decision for me.
All right, yeah, I like the 49ers.
Cool. All right, Spread. So on the count of 3, let's enter into a gauntlet returns. 1, 2, 3, enter. And while we're doing this, I just want to remind people to hit the like button. Looking for 15 likes on this video so that we can continue to put out content like this. And let's see, just jumping into the draft here. And
okay, cool. We're on the same one. You get Lamar. I'm sitting at 3. Boy, oh my gosh. Okay, so let me talk about this real quick. We already talked with you about yours. I'm going to use the cue. I want to take a stand here and take Purdy over Josh Allen. How crazy do you think that is?
I don't think it's crazy at all. I think it's going to be a potential low-scoring game with Buffalo and Kansas City, and Purdy, I think, is going to be more of a higher-scoring game anyway. So I don't.
Then my next pick is going to be 10. I'll be able to correlate him fairly easy, right? Because I'll have one of Debo, Ayuk, or Kittle still on the board, don't you think? Or do you think they'll all be gone?
Kittle likely still there, potentially Ayuk, but it's likely that it's going to be Kittle.
All right. And are you okay with Kittle at 10?
I don't hate it. Like
I don't really like it.
It depends on it depends on the AFC team that you want to. Oh God, somebody took freaking Jackson, so now it puts me in that spot.
Well, now you're on the Niners.
Yeah.
I don't see why you're upset. You just got the best player, and you're going to be able to run it back easier.
Yeah, it's the problem is what I was talking about earlier, because the quarterback that comes back to me, I need an AFC quarterback. My options are going to be basically CJ Stroud. So I'm kind
That's
of
fine.
like
I'm going to take
pigeonholed.
Josh Allen now. I'm not going to take the same team as you.
Yeah.
I'm stacking
So,
Bills now.
like with the what do you call it? The most likely quarterback to fall back to me is going to be CJ Stroud. Because I don't want to take Jared Goff because they're in the same division. I'm trying to get a team to the Super Bowl. I don't want to take Baker Mayfield, obviously. I mean, he goes much later anyways. But basically, the top 3 AFC teams are already taken by the time the first round is over, basically, for the most part, along with Brock Purdy. So I'm guessing that Muffin will probably take Patrick Mahomes, or he'll take Amon-Ra and hope that Jared Goff falls back to him in the next round. So he went with Patrick Mahomes. So the Mad Bomber is likely to try to target Jared Goff. Maybe not in this round, but in the next round. That's one good thing about the Amon-Ra strategy is, people don't want to target Jared Goff in that second round, especially the
But look,
person
we
who
have four of the 6 people have quarterbacks.
Exactly. Yeah.
So why would you take him here? I
Exactly.
say you roll the dice if you're him.
Right. Because he knows that I'm probably not going to take him because I have Christian McCaffrey. It makes no sense for me to take an NFC quarterback.
I'm going to do this Bills stack. I'm going to leave you Ayuk unless he takes him. I'm going to take Stephon Diggs next. Would you agree with that strategy? Right. I mean, when I took Josh Allen, I committed
right
to this route.
Yeah.
Okay.
When you
Tough leaving these Niners on the board because you know how high I am, but
yeah.
I want to do a different draft with Niners in it. All right. So I got Allen and Diggs. I got to be feeling good about that. And then I just add Cook, right? If he's still there.
Yeah, I would definitely stack your team. Make sure that you got a good team stack going into that next round. I'm going to go with Kittle here. So I've got 3 49ers, which is pretty rare. I'm hoping that Stroud falls back to me and that guy ends up going with Goff. So that way I can at least grab, like Stroud. I'll probably grab Collins before Stroud if he falls to me. I don't think he's going to last that long. But yes, Stroud would be my next target. Just
he might, because a lot of people might just have them going out.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I do like we talked about at the top of the show, I do like the Houston Texans, but it's tough when you have like a 49ers stack and you don't have the quarterback along with it, because then you're hoping to field an underdog to the Super Bowl. And that's the spot where I don't like drafting McCaffrey. It's a spot where you feel like, oh, I got to draft McCaffrey. But the realization is when you draft McCaffrey, it's going to be very tough to get an underdog quarterback to the Super Bowl. But it's possible. And if it happens, you'll be sitting pretty good.
So for my next pick, do I need to go NFC?
If I were you, yeah, I mean, if you don't see any other high bills worth picking, I would focus on maybe Detroit, or if you want to stack Tampa Bay, like that's an option too.
Okay, so my options here are Laporta, Evans, or Kincaid. Should I stay with the Bills stack and then just fill it out later?
I might go Detroit and get some good players on that Detroit side, because I think right now your best
you would
option,
go Laporta over Kincaid.
Yeah.
Well, Kincaid's gone.
But yeah, Kincaid.
Oh, I actually auto drafted him. My bad. Well, that's fine. I used the queue.
Right. Kincaid doesn't kill you though. I'm not gonna say that it kills you, but Kincaid is still a good pick.
It's going to run back to me here soon, too. I got a chance for Laporta. What other NFC guys could I be targeting here?
NFC, you got Laporta, you got Jameson Williams. Those are your best picks. Apart from, unless you want to go the Tampa Bay direction, and then you
I think
take
I might have to.
Yeah. Because that way, at least you got the Mike Evans, Godwin. I mean, it's a great stack that you can build there with Tampa Bay, and it's a 4 seed versus a 3 seed, so it's not. I mean, but it's a big difference between those seeds. But like I do think that Tampa has a shot at taking that game from the Lions. I think the Lions are a bit overrated. So it's coming back on spread. Spread. What's your thinking for your next pick here? You just picked up.
I'm going to go Tampa time. It's Tampa time.
Tampa? Yeah.
So my queue right now has Godwin and Mayfield in it.
So why don't you read off your team real quick?
Allen, Diggs, James Cook, Kincaid, 4 Bills. Now it's Tampa time. So I'm going to try and get Godwin next, and I think he'll be there.
Yeah, he should be. Yep.
I'll probably grab Baker. I don't know. Is that a waste of a pick to take Baker, do you think?
I don't think so. I think that I would draft him late, that way you're not forcing yourself to draft him. I think he's a guy that if the value's there, then you take it.
Yeah. All right, so I'll grab Godwin next.
I like Godwin. You also have Shakir and Davis as options. So maybe on your run back, you take one of those dudes.
Do you think Gabe Davis is better here?
I like Shakir better just because of the way that but that's recency bias. So, I mean, if you think that Gabe pulls off his playoff waves, then you're good.
All right. I grabbed Godwin right there. Now give me some time. I'll probably just go. All right. So I don't know if Shakir will still be there. Maybe he is.
So I am looking right now. Let's see. I may go with Schultz here just to get another Houston guy on my team. Now, after this round, I'm probably going to target another AFC team that I think can make it far because I don't want to, screw myself if Houston ends up getting eliminated in that first round. So I'll probably take Shakir or Davis here. Spread.
Okay, take one of them.
Actually, you know what? I'm going to take Isaiah Likely because I still got Baltimore guys in here. So I can build a little bit of a Baltimore stack here. So I got Rashad Bateman also still on the board. And that's, this is the, like decision making that you have to make when you're building these teams. You want to make sure that you're building, like a team with enough guys that can advance to the Super Bowl to help you field a complete roster. For my situation, like I'm in a rough patch because I have CJ Stroud.
Oh, Baker's gone.
Yeah, somebody just took him. But I don't think that hurts you, Spread, because I think that you only want him if he was going to be an excessive value.
So am I fine just having one quarterback?
Yeah. Yep. Quarterback. Like we're in a round now where we want to bet on a team and just go all in on it. Because, I mean, you can't, like, if you had a guy like Jordan Love, I've had a guy like Jordan Love fall to me in this 8th round and I'll take him. Or a guy like Baker fall to me in the 8th round and I'll take him. But I'm not going to go out of my way to jam a second quarterback in there unless I feel that the matchup is bad for the team that I invested in. And I'm afraid that they're not going to put up enough points to advance me to the next round.
All right, so Gabe Davis is off the board. Do I want a little run back here with one of these KC receivers, or
if you have Buffalo, I'd go away from the game that you're facing off against.
Okay. Dang it. Oh well.
Oh, you took Bateman.
Sorry.
You're good. Okay, so
it auto drafted. I had Gabe Davis on my queue, and then I was like scrolling through, and I don't really like any of these options here.
All right, so let's see. So now I got to pick. I'm going to go with these Chiefs guys because I got such a NFC heavy build. I could have taken Juwan Jennings there as well, but I'm just going to go with Valdez Scantling, which is like disgusting. But I mean, this is the situation that we're in now. We're trying to pick these scrubby guys and get as many people on our Super Bowl rosters as possible. This time around, I'm just gonna bite the bullet and go Juwan Jennings. That way, it gives me another San Francisco guy.
All right, I'll go Kate Otten here.
I like that pick, especially with your Tampa stack.
Yeah.
So it's coming back around to spread. Spread, why don't you talk about your team a little bit here?
Yeah, all Bills and all Bucks so far. Have you noticed? Oh, I have the one Baltimore player. Have you noticed that players are stacking more? And this seems to be the most like the round where I feel like the guys are thinking exactly like we are.
Yeah.
Whereas the last couple of drafts, I felt like there was guys that were playing it like a home league and just drafting their favorite player regardless of correlation.
Yeah, this is the where people are making their bets, which is why it makes sense in your last rounds to pick a scrubby guy. But he is going to be targeting, like, so you want to dig deep in these last few rounds to get differentiation because you got to keep that in mind that everybody's using the same strategy. Right. So for me, for example, since I got, like Stroud, Collins and Schultz, I may want to look deep on that Texans roster and go for a guy like Mechie or someone like that
or
who's going to be going. Yeah, who's going to be going undrafted.
Who ruined my best ball all year as I
actually like that. Yeah. Damian Pierce makes a lot of sense considering I only have one quarterback or running back too.
What do you think of a little Latavius Murray for me here?
I don't hate it. Like, but try to think too. Like, like I'm going to take Pierce here. Try to think too, like who is on Buffalo that could, score, like a touchdown and potentially have a big week in the Super Bowl that I could draft here that nobody else is drafting. Like that'd be a guy like Deontay Harris, like a guy.
Yeah, it was either Hardy or Murray, but you know what? Being a Raiders fan and just watching Murray fall forward, he just is such a great option at the goal line here. So that was the reason I decided to go for Murray.
Yeah. And I like that too. I think
pretty good stack here, Simon. I did pretty well, I think. Now, to be fair, like I said, our guys seem to be pretty focused. Our fellow drafters, right? His first guy went all in on Ravens. His first 4 picks were Ravens. You went all in on Niners. Your first 3 picks were Niners. Then you ran it back with Houston. So it was until what was round 8 that you took a player that was not on the Niners or Houston. I went all in on Bucks and Bills. So we talked about that before. We have our chalky team, and I ran it back with an underdog, right? Because you're not going to be able to get 2 chalky. You can't stack 2 chalky teams.
Right.
So the Bucks was the underdog that I kind of landed on, didn't necessarily choose. And then I'm looking here, scroll back up a little bit here. And this guy went all in on Lions, although he was the probably least correlated of all of them, but he got it done. And then he's picking players off. Who did Toffee? Who was he targeting? Packers, Niners, and Packers. Niners. Yeah. He's kind of all around there too. And then who was the last guy? Muffin or Moffitt or whatever.
Yeah.
He looked like he went all in on the Chiefs.
Yeah, he all in on the Chiefs.
So for him and I, we got a big game coming up on Sunday afternoon.
He went Chiefs Packers. So yeah, he went Chiefs Packers. He's got a full Chiefs and full Packers. I like his
at pick 6 though. He had no other option. He couldn't get one of the 4 because we all started with the four favorites.
Yep, and especially since Amon-Ra went at pick 4, so that left off the option of stacking the Lions. So he just made the most that, and that's what this is about. You got to make the most out of the draft position and what falls to you. He went with Patrick Mahomes. He's continued his Chiefs stack with Pacheco, Kelsey, and then some of the scrubby guys at the end with Edwards-Helaire. And then he went with the Green Bay Packers stack. And this is the value that you can get on a team like the Packers. He got Aaron Jones, Jordan Love, Jaden Reed, Christian Watson, Dontavian Wicks, and Tucker Kraft. He drafted all those guys. All those guys are like guys that would normally be like highly drafted or whatever. But since they are a team that's expected to lose in the first round, he basically had them all to himself. Nobody was competing with him. So you're able to build a huge stack like that in those late rounds, just like we were talking with Spread. Spread was able to build those Tampa Bay stack with no competition because nobody else wants that team. They want to focus on building their own team. And that is going to be a weakness of a lot of these teams because they're going to be loaded up on scrubby guys, like towards the end of the draft when they were trying to focus on, oh God, I got to find somebody else on my team that I can draft here, and then they end up picking, like I won't say stupid decisions, but making, like bad decisions instead of, maybe making, more value decisions. But it's not really a bad decision when your goal is to try to get as many players on your team to the Super Bowl as possible. So that is in effect more in this round than in the previous round because the good players dry up quickly and the scrubby players, end up being the guys that you want to draft as many on the same team as your main stack as possible.
All right. Well, I like my team, Simon.
Yeah, I like it, dude. Like, I think you ended up with a good team. If Houston does well, then I'll have a good team. And, I haven't gotten 3 49ers before. So that's interesting. I think that's a little bit different than, I've been doing mostly the mitten returns up until this point to get that practice in. You guys can do the same thing. Hit the subscription or the deposit on Underdog with your new accounts. Your first deposit will match you up to $100 on your first deposit. Underdog will match you up to $100 on your first deposit. Use the promo code SEEK, SEEK, just like Heat Seekers. You see it on the bottom of the screen, and they will match you up to $100 on your first deposit. Hit me up on Twitter. If you do that, I'll send you my rankings on top of it. My handle is @Pumacom. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube page. Be putting out more of this content. Put out another one of these playoff best ball shows tomorrow. And then on top of that, I've got all the game script episodes for each episode of the match of the playoffs. And, Spread joins me on a lot of those shows. And we've hit on a lot of our game scripts throughout the season, Spread. It was a good season as far as those underdog plays that we were doing throughout the season.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and I love my team today. I think that we're gonna finish the season with a bang, Simon.
I like it. So, Spread, where can they find you, and what do you have coming up for content?
Follow me at Spread Astaire. We'll be continuing to break down the NBA and the NFL and mixing in a little tennis too.
I like it. So looking for 500 subscribers. I'm at about 430 right now. So appreciate the subscribe on the channel, and we will see you guys next time.